Greetings and welcome to SpaceWeek Live, episode 129 on this Sunday, August 28th, 2022. I have returned. I'm back from an epic 10-day trip to Paris and Athens, Greece with my two kids. I'd been planning it for months, and it finally happened. I had high hopes, but I also had great fears about some of the ways it could go wrong. Not just the travel dangers, but people issues with my kids and myself. We are no fairy tale family, but we managed not to kill each other, and we even had some fun along the way. I sincerely hope that the trip will leave my kids with a richer reservoir of memories, appreciation for other cultures, and the deep history of civilization, as well as inspiration for future travels. I ended up taking more than 1,200 pictures, recorded some beautiful time lapses of our airplane flights, and bought a bunch of souvenirs. I won't subject you to a grueling slideshow right now, but I did want to do a little show and tell of my trinkets. So to start out, because some of them are actually space related. So to start off with, at Le Château de Versailles in France, I got this beautiful old-timey, like, I guess, some 1600s era or maybe 1500s globe, wood base, little functioning compass, brass enclosure. I love globes, and unfortunately they are quite expensive, and so I've never really gotten a good one, but this is a nice looking globe. I kind of fell in love with this when I saw it. Very pretty. Only other thing I got for myself in France was this little refrigerator magnet Eiffel Tower. It has a magnet on the back, and it's kind of 3D. I don't know if you can see that too well, but it sticks out from the refrigerator. So neat little magnet, just a small thing. And similarly, I got a little Parthenon refrigerator magnet. It's textured, and it's kind of 3D, like it sticks out just a little bit. So anyway, little decoration for the refrigerator. Also in Greece, I picked up some apropos statuettes that I thought you might be interested in. Alabaster with some sort of gold paint highlighting. This here, this Spartan-looking gentleman, is the Greek god Ares, otherwise known as Mars in the Roman pantheon. And obviously we all know and love Mars. He might not have been that nice a guy in real life, if the Greek pantheon of deities existed, but as far as his namesake, the planet, I figure we're all pretty big fans. And none other than the twin sister of Apollo, Artemis. Also called Diana in the Roman pantheon, goddess of the hunt, and also associated with the moon. You can see here, this is not a dog behind her. This is a little fawn or a deer. Where is it? There it is. A little fawn or a deer peeking out from behind her. But anyway, so I've got the Ares and Artemis statuettes here. And finally, because I couldn't possibly leave Greece without picking up a mini Parthenon, I have, it's actually kind of a big one, but I have this large alabaster version of the famous Parthenon temple from the Acropolis of Athens, which my kids and I visited. I have many photos from the top of the Acropolis. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like this anymore because a few centuries ago, well, over the centuries, it was damaged and then redamaged. And then in the 17th century, a besieging Venetian army struck the Parthenon with some sort of munitions or artillery or something, and ignited an ammunition, like basically a powder magazine, or basically the Greeks were using the Parthenon as a munitions depot. I guess because it's large and made of stone, but unfortunately, the munitions ignited and basically blew up the Parthenon. And so the ruins we see today are largely the result of that. In addition, the ancient Greek temples were quarried. They were looted and quarried for building materials for other structures around Athens and around Greece. Like, for example, the temple of Olympian Zeus is actually bigger than the Parthenon, or was actually bigger than the Parthenon, containing many more columns on a slightly grander scale. But it was basically stripped down to just a few remaining columns, by basically people reusing the building materials for other structures around the city. So anyway, that was my little show and tell. Now I need to find places for these things on my bookshelves behind me. So I hope you don't mind me taking you on that little journey. But now I did want to mention, so some of you may know that for this trip that I went on, I had went ahead and pulled the trigger on the purchase of a new camera, full frame, mirrorless digital SLR camera. Very significant investment. I agonized over the decision a lot, but I did end up getting it. Unfortunately, I made a big boo-boo when I brought the camera on my trip, and that is to say, I failed to verify the image format that the camera was saving the images as. And so all like 850 photos that I took with my brand new fancy camera, and then 400 on my phone, but the 850 that I took on my new camera were not in the Nikon RAW image format that they were supposed to be. They were in medium quality JPEG format. And so for your average tourist, that like wouldn't mean anything, but for a photographer, that is devastating, because it means that I won't be able to touch up the pictures nearly to the extent that I would be able to if they were in the original RAW format. I really shot myself in the foot with that one. But I did look through them, and the pictures still look good. They just don't, they're not going to be like the top-notch professional quality that I was hoping for. And that's it. I'm not, like, I don't get a second chance for this kind of thing. So I'll work with what I've got, and big lesson learned for the future: always check your image formats if you have a premium digital camera. Anyway, let's get caught up on recent space events since I was gone last week. Two Thursdays ago, oh, why do we have music? There we go. 2 Thursdays ago, on August 18th, SpaceX Cargo Dragon CRS-25 undocked from the International Space Station, bound for a controlled deorbit and parachute splashdown off the Florida coast. This same vehicle previously flew on the CRS-21 and CRS-23 cargo missions. Then on Friday the 19th, a Chinese Long March 2D launched the fourth group of 3 Yaogan 35 satellites from Xichang Satellite Launch Center in southwest China. The satellites will reportedly be used for the usual purposes: scientific experiments, land surveys, agricultural estimates, and disaster mitigation. That's the stated purpose of most of the satellites that get launched from over there.
5、4、3、2、1，点火！点火！
That same day, SpaceX launched another batch of Starlink satellites from Cape Canaveral.
T-minus 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Lift off the Falcon 9. Go Falcon, go Starlink. Down right. And 1D chamber pressure is nominal.
Odd little buffering glitch there. And the landing.
Here's a good shot of the first stage. You can actually see those grid fins actively steering the vehicle.
Stage 1 landing burn.
Startup of a single Merlin engine on the first stage in preparation for landing.
Seco. Landing leg deploy.
And beautiful
Stage 1
shot
landing confirmed.
of first stage landing. That marks the 100th.
Then last Tuesday, a Chinese Kuaizhou 1A vehicle-launched rocket lifted off from Xichang with the Chuangxin 16, a satellite that will reportedly be used for science, technology verification, and other fields. And that is it. Sorry there's not more video of that one. My guess is that they didn't want to show the rocket's carrier vehicle. And if you're curious, the orange puffs that you saw coming from around the upper stage of the rocket were hypergolic fuels, nitrogen tetroxide and some variant of hydrazine. All right. On Wednesday, there was yet another Chinese launch. This time, a Long March 2D launched the Beijing 3B Earth observation satellite from Taiyuan in northeast China. Last night, there was another Starlink launch from the Cape, adding 54 more satellites to the mega constellation.
T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Engines full power. Liftoff, Starlink 423. Stage 1 chamber pressure is nominal.
Impressive fireball.
As it accelerates our Starlink satellites into orbit.
And the landing.
Stage 1 landing burn.
And the landing burn has begun on the first stage. And we are attempting to land on our drone ship a shortfall of gravitas tonight.
Landing light deploy. And Seco. Stage 1 landing is confirmed.
And there you can see Falcon 9 has landed. This marks the 100th
Thank you, Jesse, for that update.
class rocket. 110.
In other news, SpaceX and T-Mobile made a big announcement that they are partnering to integrate T-Mobile cell phone technology into the Starlink second-generation satellites that are currently in development. The plan is to add a large and therefore sensitive antenna to the Gen 2 Starlink satellites, which are quite large, too large to be launched by a Falcon 9. They'll have to be launched by a Starship rocket once that is available, once that's in production. And Elon stated that if there are excessive Starship development delays, then they do have an option for sort of a Starlink Gen 2 mini satellite, which will also be compatible with this T-Mobile integration. And so what they will do is actually, it'll be actually, the Starlink Gen 2 satellites will actually have T-Mobile cellular transceivers in orbit around the Earth, and that they will be tuned to the same frequency that our cell phones already use. The idea is that they will be adding global cellular coverage with a satellite constellation that existing phones can use. It's really rather mind-blowing. Now, it's going to be, because your cell phone is not a dishy McFlatface, Starlink receiver, great big satellite dish. Its signal is going to be very weak, which is why the antenna needs to be so big on the Starlink Gen 2 satellites. But it will allow for a small amount of information to be sent, starting with texts and certain messaging applications and some voice, maybe not video, maybe a little bit of video, but it's going to be a very limited bandwidth because the signal from your phone needs to reach the satellites, and where there's such a weak signal, there's just not room for a high data throughput. So you're not going to be able to stream 4K videos and necessarily have super fast download speeds, but it will be a lifeline and a means by which to communicate at a basic level anywhere with your existing cell phone if you're on the T-Mobile network. And the plan from T-Mobile is to include this capability in their most popular coverage plans. So there wouldn't be some crazy high cost for it. And what that means is no more dead zones. Like literally, you could be on top of a mountain in the middle of the Rockies, pull out your T-Mobile cell phone and communicate. If you get lost in the wilderness or whatever, I mean, you will always have some form of connection, whether it's to a ground-based cellular tower or a satellite-based Starlink tower. It's really pretty cool. Yeah, so I'm excited to see, this is a smart integration. This is a smart move by T-Mobile and SpaceX, because with the platform, essentially, of the Starlink constellation, they are, leveraging that capability in a way that nobody really even dreamed about, before, a few years ago. So I just want to play a little clip here.
You said the Gen 2 antennas are very big. Can you talk about how big those are? Sort of.
So big.
But I mean, NASA has had some issues with another company's antennas because they were really big. So I'm just trying to get a sense of how big they are, and then how many of these can actually fit in the Falcon 9 payload fairing, because you've been talking about launching that in addition to Starship. So thanks.
So big. But yeah, so anyway, I wanted to share that bit of news because it's pretty exciting. I'm not a T-Mobile customer myself. I'm with Verizon. But the capability of never having a dead zone anywhere, essentially anywhere on the planet, with your cell phone, and due to regulatory complications, the extent to which T-Mobile service would be provided in places that aren't in the United States, I don't know, they might be able to extend it into international waters across the world's oceans, because those are international, but they might not, for example, be able to provide service in foreign countries unless they had agreements with those countries, or perhaps the cellular providers of those, in those foreign locations could opt into a partnership with T-Mobile and SpaceX to also use this same capability, basically piggybacking on top of T-Mobile's antennas, essentially. But pretty cool development. So looking ahead to this week, there's not really anything noteworthy happening. Oh wait, yes there is. Artemis 1 launches tomorrow. That is right. At long last, after many years of planning, development, and delays, the Space Launch System is about to lift off for the first time. So starting immediately after this SpaceWeek episode, I will begin the 24-hour coverage of Artemis 1's Artemis 1's launch with live pad views from Launch Complex 39B at Kennedy Space Center. The link for that stream is in the chat. Then tonight at midnight Eastern, 0400 UTC, begins coverage of the SLS fuel loading in the same live stream I just linked. At 6:30 a.m. Eastern, 10:30 UTC, launch coverage begins. Then on Monday, August 29th, tomorrow at 8:33 a.m. Eastern, 13:33 UTC, NASA's SLS rocket will launch the Artemis 1 mission to the moon. There's a 2-hour launch window, so they could push the launch to as late as 10:33 a.m. Eastern, 14:33 UTC. Okay, I misspoke. The launch is scheduled for 8:33 a.m. Eastern, 12:33 UTC. That was just a typo. I put 13:33. So launch is scheduled for 12:33 UTC, with the launch window extending for 2 hours. Tentatively at noon Eastern, 1600 UTC, is a post-launch news conference. Please note that the time is subject to change. At 4 p.m. Eastern, 2000 UTC, is coverage of Orion's first trajectory correction burn. Then at 5:30 p.m. Eastern, 2130 UTC, are Orion's first views of Earth after its translunar injection. And if you're not familiar, just like with the Apollo program, the craft starts out orbiting the Earth, then it performs a translunar injection burn, which puts it on a path toward the moon, and then it performs a lunar orbit injection burn, which circularizes its orbit around the moon. So on the Orion spacecraft atop the SLS rocket has a crew capacity of up to 6 people, but Artemis 1 is a test flight, so this time it will be uncrewed. Like I said, it will begin by orbiting the Earth, performing a translunar injection, cruising for 3 to 4 days across the 200 some odd thousand miles between the Earth and the Moon, and then entering a lunar orbit for up to 1 month, 3 to 4 weeks, then return to Earth and splash down around October 10th. Now, they're basically going to be testing out all of the SLS's and the Orion's systems in advance of the first human mission to return to the moon, which will be Artemis 2, which is currently scheduled for May 2024. However, the human landing system that is proposed is SpaceX's Starship, and the development of that system continues. We still don't have an orbital Starship in production, so there may be additional delays, but currently Artemis 2 is scheduled for May 2024. But yeah, I'll be streaming throughout, all the way from approximately 3:45 p.m. Eastern today, as soon as SpaceWeek is done, through 5:30 p.m. tomorrow, when as soon as, whenever NASA's done showing off Orion's first Earth views. And that, again, I'll link that again in the chat, so you can have that link. But don't go there yet, because we're still in the middle of SpaceWeek. Then Wednesday, August 31st at 1:30 a.m. Eastern, 5:30 UTC, SpaceX launches a batch of 46 Starlink satellites from Vandenberg in California. Due to the late hour, I don't know if you can hear that, we're getting some thunder here. Due to the late hour, I won't be able to stream that launch for you. In an attempt to normalize my sleep cycle and improve my health, I'm going to start skipping the late night live streams. So I'm sorry for that, but I've got to look out for my own health. You can always watch the live coverage directly on SpaceX's channel, minus the well-moderated and sane chat that we have here. Also on Wednesday at 9:30 a.m. Eastern, 13:30 UTC, Blue Origin New Shepard NS-23 will launch another group of 6 paying customers into suborbital space just past the Kármán line, and I will have a live stream of that for you. So that's all the events of the coming week. I want to take a moment to thank the supporters of this channel, even in this dark and bleak period of demonetization that appears that it may be permanent. But I'll go ahead and put some links in the chat if you're interested in voicing your support for what we do here at Raw Space, providing you with launch streams from around the world, weekly summaries, satellite time lapses, and so on and so forth. Okay, let me get to your questions. All right, what do we got? Okay, so this is from Chris V asking, what did I think about the Sun King's fountains at the Château de Versailles in France? So Versailles is the royal palace that's actually outside of Paris a little ways. Absolutely mind-blowingly grand and magnificent estate. It is just phenomenally opulent, and that's kind of I have mixed feelings about that. I mean, it's gorgeous inside and out, the whole place. The grounds, very extensive grounds, the gardens and the ponds and the greenway extends for a couple of miles down from the chateau, the actual palace. But the Sun King's fountain, I don't recall which one that was, whether that was the one with the frogs like vomiting water or what, but but I saw a lot of different features and they were all gorgeous. But my mixed feelings are kind of rooted in the knowledge that this incredibly grand, expensive and opulent creation was what it represents, the ruling class using the resources of the people of the country to prop themselves up and live life on an entirely different plane of existence than the common folk. All like on the walls of Versailles are just countless, brilliantly painted, but nonetheless, vain, narcissistic paintings of rich, noble people that thought very much of themselves. And I actually found that element of the experience quite disgusting. The work is gorgeous, again, and it was an amazing cultural experience, but the actual humanity that it represents, like the human cost that is represented by this sort of monument, is a little distasteful. But anyway, so that's my complex answer to Chris V's question. Space Gamer, raw space. How much time does it take to get to the moon, SLS, versus Apollo, and also Mars SLS versus Apollo? So, SLS versus Apollo, the issue with any space mission is a trade-off between fuel and speed. Like, it's possible to get to the moon. For example, there was a NASA research mission or Pathfinder mission or whatever to the moon, launched by a little bitty electron rocket. Now, it's going to take, months to get there, but it's well on its way, and it's going to get there, I think, in November. But with humans, you don't have months, you have days. And so that's why we build great big rockets, so that we can go really fast to the moon. And so SLS has more thrust than the Saturn V did, on the order of, let's see, I think at least a couple million pound-force of thrust more than the Saturn V did. I don't have the specs right in front of me. The Saturn V was about, 8.5 million pound-force, 8.7, something like that. And SLS Block 1 crew total thrust at liftoff is 8.8 million. You know what? Maybe I'm getting those mixed up. Maybe the Saturn V was 7.8 million. In any case, it's in the same range as the Saturn V, but a little bit more. It's like because the Block 1 is like the smallest. It's huge, but it's the smallest of the SLS variants. There will be more powerful variants down the road, and so the question was, how long? So between 3 and 4 days is how long it should take. Now, I don't know the specific itinerary for Artemis 1, but I'm sure that'll be discussed in detail during NASA's presentations during the live stream that I will be restreaming for you shortly, right after this broadcast. But NASA's coverage begins again at midnight Eastern, and then with launch coverage beginning at 6:30 a.m. Eastern. Yeah, I would expect it to be on the order of about 4 days, maybe 3.5 to 4 days. However, this is a test mission, and so they may be taking extra time to test things out or whatever. So we'll see. But Mark Desire, yes, raw space. This happens over hundreds and hundreds of years. When your own culture and civilization takes a different path, it sees its own past different too. Okay. Elizabeth Boboshevska. The best gift, raw space on Sunday. Thank you very much, Elizabeth, from some Cyrillic language-using country, Ukraine, Russia, somewhere over there. But thank you very much. You're quite kind. Maria C. Kutujan asks, Next, September 26th, the DART mission will hit the asteroid redirection test. So I haven't verified the date yet, but you're probably quite right. DART will be separating, well, the DART impactor will be separating from the transmitter and plowing into an asteroid's little bitty satellite asteroid, mini asteroid, and in an attempt to measure its deflection. It's not going to pose any danger to the Earth because the trajectory of the small satellite asteroid will only be changed very, very slightly, like barely perceptibly, and it's orbiting another asteroid. It's not orbiting the Earth. I mean, it's not orbiting the Sun. It's orbiting its parent asteroid, which is in turn orbiting the Sun. And so the system of the big asteroid and the little asteroid will keep the same orbit around the Sun. So there's no chance that we could potentially knock this in a trajectory towards Earth. Space Gamer, Raw Space. Will NASA launch to Mars from the launch pad or not? I don't know how. A Mars mission, I am unaware of NASA's far future plans for a Mars launch system. I mean, SpaceX certainly has plans to use Starship to launch to Mars, with orbital refueling and et cetera, but I am not actually sure what NASA plans to use, what vehicle NASA plans to use to get to Mars. So I don't really have that answer for you. But whether they, it would be cheaper to, I mean, the model of launching a fueling depot to orbit and then launching your crew vehicle to orbit, refueling on orbit, and then launching, and then leaving orbit, doing a trans-Mars injection or whatever, a Hohmann transfer orbit injection toward Mars, is a good model. It makes sense, but I don't have any specific knowledge of what NASA's plans are for going to Mars. Only that they have stated for a long time that they do want to go there eventually. Mark Desire, I hope DART won't tear Dimorphos apart and send Didymos in another direction. No, I don't think there's any chance of that. The spacecraft, it might not even alter Dimorphos's, and thank you for the names, I wasn't remembering them before. Didymos is the parent asteroid and Dimorphos is the mini satellite asteroid. But it's possible that even the impact of the spacecraft traveling at tens of thousands of miles per hour relative to Dimorphos might not alter its trajectory to a measurable degree. But we shall see. That's what the mission is all about. They still don't know the consistency of Dimorphos, whether it's a rubble pile or a solid chunk of stone or metal or what. Well, they may have a clue as to its constituent materials, but they don't have much information beyond that. Marina Repan says, Raw Space, I'm trying to understand, when do we have a Starship launch to orbit? So for a long time, SpaceX was delayed in their Starship orbital test flight by FAA environmental assessment, by a pending Federal Aviation Administration environmental assessment. Now that that's in the can, as it were, SpaceX can, pretty soon move forward with their orbital test flight. I don't know exactly when it's going to happen. Maybe in September, maybe in October, but I'm far too busy with my other obligations to dedicate too much time to following the play-by-play of Starship development, because I know there's a lot of other channels, very, very talented and passionate channels that are following that with a microscope. So, but I'm not, but the thing is, nobody knows. Like, nobody except SpaceX knows when they plan to conduct their orbital test flight, and maybe they don't even know if there are still unknowns in the calculus that remain to be worked out. But now they did do a couple of Raptor 2 engine test firings, including a 20-second static fire test a couple of weeks ago before I left for my trip. MV on Motovlog Music, and this is regarding my saying that I won't be able to stream things in the middle of the night. We understand, raw space. Take care of yourself first, or else we all lose. Thank you for that sentiment. Yeah, now, the Artemis launch coverage will be continuous. Like, I should say the stream will be a marathon stream. I'll be starting it just after SpaceWeek and continuing through tomorrow afternoon, at least, based on the coverage that NASA provides. Now, I'm not going to be staying up for all that time. I'm not going to stay up all night. But I will be restreaming the NASA coverage for you. And so if they have other content on their broadcast that isn't strictly Artemis related, well, at least you'll have something to watch. Let's see. Mark Desire. NASA is putting mannequins, this is a question. Is NASA putting mannequins in spacesuits inside the Orion capsule? So, the Artemis 2 mission will presumably carry 6 humans to the moon. And so I would presume that NASA would place either mannequin dummies or some sort of mass simulators in their Orion capsule to simulate the weight of those humans. Because 6 humans is a not insubstantial amount of mass. And I think that they would want to conduct their test with as realistic a mass configuration as possible. And so I believe that they will probably put mannequins in the seats or some sort of mass simulators. But it would make sense to use mannequins because they look roughly humanoid. But I don't know for sure. And I'm sure they'll mention that tomorrow morning when they do their official coverage. Rockin' Robbins 13. Raw space. Do we have a checklist of critical events to check off during the mission? So the timeline. There's an Artemis NASA webpage where you can go that probably has more details, but the NASA TV broadcast schedule only provided fairly scant details as to the events of note, which I covered in my rundown of upcoming live streams, where I mentioned that the midnight for the fueling and 6:30 for the live coverage, the launch coverage, 8:33 for the launch, 8:33 to 10:33 for the launch window, and then the post-launch news conference and so on. But beyond that, I don't have that information at my fingertips. We just got back from our trip 2 nights ago. It was a grueling day because we were in Greece on Friday. We woke up in Greece at 3 o'clock in the morning, and we got to the airport at local time. That's in Greece time. which is GMT plus 3, I think. And we got to the airport a little after 5 a.m. We didn't land back home in Charlotte until like 6:30 p.m. East Coast time, which is like the equivalent of 1:30 a.m. Greece time. And so we had approximately 22 hours of travel with 13 hours on the planes themselves, and then 8 hours in the airports, before, after, and with 2 layovers, each of which was a couple hours. We were absolutely exhausted when we got back, and jet lagged from having gone backwards 7 time zones. So, I haven't been able to do all the detailed research that I would have liked to do for the upcoming Artemis 1 launch, and I apologize for that. But I do have a feasible excuse, and that is that I've been completely wiped out by my travel experience. Yesterday, I'm mostly rested, which I really needed. But in any case, yeah, that's my response. Let's see. Space Gamer. I think it might undock from Gateway and go to Mars, I think, but thanks. So, as for whether the yet to be launched Lunar Gateway, or LOP-G, will be used as the staging point for a journey to Mars remains to be seen. But yes, that is one of the possibilities. And we'll see how it actually pans out. Like, the gateway is not there yet. Artemis 1 is not going to a lunar gateway. Artemis 1's going directly into lunar orbit. And the gateway core module, or whatever, has yet to be launched. Rockin' Robbins 13. Is Dimorphos a gravel pile like Bennu? Not my cat, but the asteroid Bennu? Or is it something else entirely? I don't think they know. They may, through spectroscopy, they may have an idea of what it is composed of, but I don't think they know what its consistency is. They just don't have any kind of high-resolution images of Didymos or Dimorphos. No craft has ever passed close to them before. But soon we will. We'll have all the images and video of the impact, or at least the impact attempt. All right. Any more questions? So I'm caught up on the backlog. Thank you so much, Chris V, for transcribing those. Mark Desire, Gateway is expected to get used during the Artemis 4 mission, ? That is possible. I looked into the future Artemis missions briefly in preparation for this episode, but I didn't specifically notice whether there was a mention of the Lunar Gateway, in the schedule for Artemis 4 or not. But yeah. So, looks like, unless there are any more questions, I want to mention that SpaceWeek is also available as an audio podcast on iTunes and Amazon and others, if you enjoy listening to it that way. I usually have these episodes posted either later on Sunday evening or by midday Monday if I don't get it done on Sunday. But I'll try to have it up for you as soon as I can. Also, I want to mention once again that as soon as this SpaceWeek episode is done, I will be starting the Artemis 24-hour marathon live stream, starting out with live pad views from Launch Complex 39B at Kennedy Space Center for a few hours until the actual commentated coverage of the fueling operations begin at midnight Eastern tonight. Okay, so thank you all so much for coming. Make sure you head on over to the Artemis 1 stream URL that I linked in the chat. Keep it raw, and bye-bye for now. Bennu says hi, by the way.